Mr. Chriscoe.
Here.
Mr. Nicosia.
Here.
Ms. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Bonniville. Here. All present.
Thank you. All that are able, will you please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance by the Dr. Joseph Leming, Petsworth District.
Dear Heavenly Father, we ask your blessings on this gathering tonight, both those here physically and watching from afar. We ask that you join us in our common interest and not divide us by our differences. We ask that all that we do be in the work of the people, for the people, and by the people. We ask your blessings on our troops who are in harm's way and all their families who support them. Keep them safe and Godspeed. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to approval of the minutes from February 17th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We now move to the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on, we have approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving on. Matters presented by the board. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, Dr. Leming.
I'm opening my phone to get a precise address. This board has often heard my complaints about blighted properties and the inaction that seems to surround many of them as they languish and languish and languish. But I think I'm correct if I get the address straight. There was a visible cleanup today at 9064 Dutton Road where tons of trash were removed from the yard. It was a health hazard, and to his credit, Greg has done a good job at applying pressure and getting resolution, and I just want to congratulate both Mr. Greg Gentry, and then I also want to thank the county staff that has been supporting him in trying to get this particular property resolved. It's one thing to always be critical and never be thankful, but in this case, I know that the citizens in the Petsworth district, and specifically those around 9064 Dutton Road, are extraordinarily grateful. And aside of blighted property being resolved, I think it's a health hazard that has also been resolved. And I just wanted to say congratulations to his efforts, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anything else?
Yeah,
Dr. Orth.
yeah, this is interesting. So just you all know I go to a caregiver group, and there was a general comment about the Sheriff's Department and how appreciative many people are for the services that the Sheriff's Department provides for helping people in need. And it was an impressive number of appreciative comments, and I just want to let the Sheriff's Department know they are greatly appreciated for the way they handle some of these very sensitive processes. So I just want to say thank you to the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you. Any other matters? Seeing none, County Administrator items. Mr. Baines.
Yes, sir. Let y'all know that as we move forward with the fire station, that the terms of agreement with the bank have been signed. They've been returned to them. We're now moving to the next step. There'll be a larger group that'll be getting the documents that go along with that in the next week or so. All right?
Thank you.
And bids are due very soon, right?
June
1st?
June 1st.
June 1st.
Is that it, Mr. Baines? Okay. We will now move to our public comment period. I ask when you come forward, please state your name, your magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. This is a work session, so please, items on the work session agenda only, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
Our stream's not working right now. They're trying to figure out whether it's here at TC Walker, so people at home aren't seeing what's happening inside
But we are recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Bazzani from the York District. I had the privilege and honor of serving in your very chairs that you're sitting in for the last 12 years. Maybe some of you remember me. but that's neither here nor there. I'm here tonight to talk about one of your agenda items regarding a forensic audit of our books and records to determine who, what, when, where, how regarding the spending of our tax dollars. And I've heard some of you say that our financial records are audited annually, and that's true. They are audited annually, and they pass with muster. But a financial audit is like going to a doctor for a physical audit of your body. Is your heart working the way it should? Is your blood pressure normal? Is your weight in check? But from an accounting perspective, your accounts are correctly placed in a financial audit. Are your debits and credits correct? Are they in the right place? And are your financial records follow your journal entries with respect to those debits and credits? Its purpose, as we all know, is to determine whether your financial statements are generally accurate and the books and records follow generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP as we call them. Now, a forensic audit goes much deeper, gentlemen and ladies. It's conducted to determine whether tax dollars are spent properly, when there's suspicion of financial mismanagement or probably improper spending, or maybe something over budget or transferred to another budget. Forensic audits first assume that the financial audit's in order. That's requirement number one, because they take the financial audit and they do a deep dive into each component of the financial audit. So the forensic audit looks at specific transactions, traces money trails, where those trails lead, justifies the spending in each account, and often involve interviews, emails, contracts, and bank recs. I've been through 2 of them in my career. 2 of them, very intense, very detailed, especially when the fire's under your feet having to explain your budget in each line item. It also involves interviews with county leadership in each department to make sure they justify their spending by account code. All right? I've seen spending to buy sunglasses at Walmart, sundresses, personal lunches and the like, and I've got the receipts. It's more like a detective investigation. So to put it simply, the 2 types of audits are very, very different. One determines whether the I's and T's are dotted and crossed. The other determines if the monies in each account are being spent properly. Therefore, I strongly support a forensic audit based on my conversations with many citizens over the last 12 years. They've howled for this. You've recently raised our taxes, and they're screaming right now. They're screaming, why did you raise my taxes? There's a real concern on how our tax dollars are being spent, and a majority of you recently voted to raise taxes, as we all know. You made the bold move to change the organizational management of this county. So now it's time to make a bold move to implement a forensic audit of the books and records of this county. Please conduct one with an independent firm that the county has not dealt with. Completely independent, they don't know us, they go in. And so as an old friend who came here every night who's no longer with us, I thank you for the time.
Name's Randy Orga from the York District. I'd like to talk about this forensic audit. First thing I'd like to do is touch base with that referendum that some of you on this board were here when that carnival took place. We could have built a firehouse for $12 million at that present time. It was asked by the county administrator, can this firehouse be built? The answer was yes, numerous times. Now it's $40 million. That's a $28 million problem. Where are you going to get that money? I guess you're going to have to come out here and start beating these people. Next thing, I like to talk about this flyer for the referendum. This flyer was sent home. Beautiful 6-page flyer. I don't know what this thing cost. Sent home to 38,000 people in Gloucester County trying to get these people to buy into this referendum so that they would raise their own taxes, thinking that they were voting for a firehouse that could already been built. They would be in it, enjoying it right now. But that didn't take place. They had 2 town hall meetings. They had people there. You said that the video's not working. I know the video didn't work there one time, and a lot of people were asking for the video when important meetings come up like this. But what did that cost? What did that cost to bring all those people out there and try to convince them? You spent more time trying to convince them to tax themselves than you are looking to do an audit, a forensic audit on yourself. And when you get people leaving the county, I don't know why they're leaving, but it just, the perception from that seat to that seat is different. It's different. You know, you got water plant problems. You've got broadband. How many people ever signed up for broadband? Do we even know? Or is that still into play for the county? I mean, where is all this money going? You come out here and you hit these people hard like this. Well, they deserve to know. I said, the Board of Supervisors, you're taxing everything you can get your hands on. You know, gas is $5 a gallon, food is up, everything is up. And to just sit there and continue to pound these people, it smells like we need a forensic audit. And the word on the street, the only reason you ain't taxing the tooth fairy is because they can't find a 911 address. So I thought I saw a sign. I'm going to tell y'all, people say this costs a lot of money to do this. That's all I hear. You don't mind taxing us for a lot of money, but that land is for sale at Page Middle School. I just saw a sign on the way here. Now, I imagine that land's probably worth $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million. There's your money to pay for your forensic audit. Thank you.
Good evening, Greg Reed, Gloucester Point Magisterial. I just want to speak out in favor of the forensic audit. Believe that it is something that we need to find out why we were suddenly going to be running a deficit on our budget, and that we had to raise the taxes mostly on the backs of the property owners, homeowners here in the county, obviously not the boat owners, of which adjacent counties do have boat taxes, so some of that information that was relayed at the meetings wasn't quite as accurate as it might have been. But I just want to say I was brought into an organization and to do an audit, to put together a process to audit process. And what we found in all of that was not, how do I say this? The supposition was that the subcontractors were taking advantage of the company. And what we actually found was that the company didn't understand their own process. And I think maybe some of those lessons could be learned here, that maybe we can learn something about the process in the county and why suddenly we were in need of a $6.5 million raise for the county budget. So definitely am in favor of a forensic audit. Thank you.
Good evening, Lisa Reed, Gloucester Point. I stood before you a couple of weeks ago and said that if you were going to raise the taxes, I deserved a justification for it, and I have gotten none. Nor did I see any cuts to the budget at all. So to that, it does beg the question, what kind of hole and how much misspending has happened in this county to create said hole? I think for sure a forensic audit is in absolute necessity. I've worked in private sector all my life. I've worked for corporations, both private and publicly traded, and in all of those instances, forensic audits were done periodically, regularly, every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever it was. To my knowledge, none has ever been done in this county. And it really should be. If you're doing your job, you should have a full-on eagle eye on our money. Otherwise, you're coming to the well that is going to be dry pretty soon if you keep taxing us and taxing us with no accountability. To that end, I do want to point out, for your edification, other counties in the state of Virginia have done this recently, and almost all of them have found something. Big, small, whatever, but they have found something. I think we owe it to the citizens, especially if you're taking more of my money. I'm happy to pay for a forensic audit to know where my money went for the last 5 years. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Baines, Mr. Wilmot. My name is Teresa Altimus, and I reside in the Gloucester Point District. Several people before me have said what I was going to say, so I will just skip down and cover some other things. This increase that you all just passed, or the majority of you passed, you will see under my estimation $3.4 million plus of an increase. A large portion of this you will see in the current fiscal year, taxes that we must pay by June 30. I believe this board should move forward, vote 7-0. Full accountability to the citizens is what you owe them. Nothing less would be questioned. I am suggesting one area that, in my personal opinion, because I've been reading and researching, is to look at the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. In 2021, Gloucester County received $7.24 million in ARPA funds. It was distributed in two different amounts. The first amount was $3.62 million, the second amount $2.44 million for broadband. One of the questions, or several questions that I have asked, it's my understanding that those funds were used to purchase 4 towers for that broadband in 4 separate locations throughout Gloucester County. My questions are, did the county actually purchase those towers? If so, where are they located? My understanding was one of the towers was supposed to be in Harcum, and as of Sunday afternoon when I rode by there was no tower. Are there tower locations? Are there documentation to justify that $2.2 million that was spent? How many people, and this question was asked earlier, benefited from receiving broadband from this appropriation? The second thing I would like to find out is, and I can't, please correct me if I'm wrong, where did the remainder of the ARPA funding, $3.612 million, go? I have unfortunately been able to find that second appropriation. Finally, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, sir, I would like to address one other thing. From this podium, on social media and in print, there has been much said or insinuated about me personally. My name has been invoked from this very podium. I want to address the misinformation and the lies by using this podium that people have said. If people want to talk about me publicly, I have no problem with that. But don't lie about me, tell the truth. It has been said, insinuated, and written that your responsibility that this board 7 weeks ago took an action by a 4-3 vote to no longer acknowledge the contract of the former county administrator. Let me be very clear. I had absolutely nothing to do with this board's decision. For those of you that are intentionally not telling the truth about me, you should ask yourself, what did this board find out? What did they know? What did they uncover, discover, or was something said to warrant this decision made? Finally, Mr. Chairman, it's been stated many times, a similar decision was made 18 years ago. I was a member of the board and chair at the time. There was no firing of a county administrator. We did not vote to fire him. What we voted was by 5-2 to accept a willfully submitted resignation 2 months prior to the meeting. He submitted the resignation, and again, by 5-2, we accepted that effective immediately. Again, let me be clear. We did not fire the previous county administrator. Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much, and to the members of the board for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight and to help clear up some of this misinformation. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Ms. Cronin, do we have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I had one comment submitted from Jack Moore in the York District. Good evening, my name is Jack Moore, and I proudly resided in the York District for the past 40 years. I'm writing to express my concerns regarding the level of transparency surrounding several issues within our local government, particularly those involving county finances. I believe one important step toward restoring public confidence and providing clarity to both the board and the citizens would be to move forward with a forensic audit of the county's financial records covering the past 3 years. Such an audit could help identify and better explain the county's current financial position while ensuring accountability and openness in government operations. Transparency in government is essential to maintaining the trust of the public and confidence in those elected and appointed to represent our community. Conducting a forensic audit would demonstrate a commitment to openness, fiscal responsibility, and accountability to the citizens of this county. This letter is my respectful request for the board's support in pursuing this forensic audit. I believe it would be a positive step towards strengthening public trust and ensuring a clear understanding of the county's financial status. Thank you for your time, consideration, and service to our community. From Jack Moore. Those are all the.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Seeing no others, I will close the public comment period. We will now move to our work session agenda. The first item on our agenda tonight is discussion of proposed Fox Mill Community Development Authority, or a CDA, Ms. Ann Ducey-Ortiz, as well as some representatives from D.R. Horton.
Good evening. I'm really just going to introduce the topic, but as you know, we have a rezoning for the Fox Mill project, and the Planning Commission had recommended denial. The applicant has resubmitted proffers, and one of the proffers is contingent on the creation of a CDA. So staff felt it would be important for you to have a work session to kind of hear about CDAs, ask any questions. So the applicant has brought a representative from UNICAP, Joanna Fiimi, I know I was going to pronounce that wrong, to present it to you, and then they're here to answer any questions. So with that, I'll just give it to Ms. Fiimi.
Please state your name for the record when you start so we have it.
Yes.
Luckily, unfortunately, Ms. Ducey-Ortiz had to try to pronounce it. Luckily for me, they did not put it on my paperwork for me to mess up tonight. So I'll let you say it perfectly for us.
Joanna Feimi.
Thank you.
As Anne mentioned, I'm here to represent MUNICAP along with my associate, Irfan Abral. MUNICAP is a municipal advisor registered with the SEC and MSRB. We've been around since 1997 and specialize in the areas of public investment and real estate development. We were one of the first firms in the Mid-Atlantic region to provide tax increment financing and special district administration. We currently administer all of the existing CDAs in Virginia and some in Maryland. We've closed in over 700 bond transactions since our inception, with $15 billion invested in real estate, 30 of which are transactions associated with these Virginia CDAs. So we prepared an overview of the community development authorities, the mechanism, how they work, and their benefits. So let's get started. What is a CDA? A CDA is a special purpose political subdivision created by a locality to finance, facilitate, acquire, own, and/or maintain public infrastructure benefiting a defined development area. It was authorized by the Virginia Water and Waste Authorities Act and used widely across Virginia. I'm going to stop at the end of each slide and allow you for the opportunity to ask any questions. Okay, next, here's a list of the existing Virginia CDAs and the associated projects or bond issuances. So there's 20 CDAs and 29 bond issuances. Some are mixed use, some residential only, and others are purely commercial. Now let's get into the Fox Mill project. The project is proposed to consist of 214 townhome units and 213 single-family units. A CDA is being contemplated with relation to this project to provide funding for the following public improvements: water capacity improvements, which take priority, and additional developer-related improvements such as pump station, roads, water facilities, and off-site infrastructure. Key characteristics of CDAs. They're created by ordinance or resolution of a locality. In our case, it's an ordinance. They're frequently developer-initiated by means of a petition, but publicly authorized by means of the ordinance. They're governed by a board appointed by the locality, exist within a defined geographic area, can issue bonds and enter into agreements to facilitate the bond issuance, can own and/or maintain public improvements or infrastructure. Any questions so far? Now let's get into the details of the CDA board and their characteristics. The board by law is required to consist of a minimum of 5 members, and they all must be residents of the Commonwealth. They are supposed to have not to exceed terms of 4 years, which can be staggered, can include Board of Supervisors and county staff members. County staff members don't have to be on the CDA board, but can attend CDA board meetings. The developer can nominate CDA board members. However, it's the Board of Supervisors' responsibility to appoint the CDA board members. As such, it can accept or reject nominees. And the appointment of CDA board members may occur at or after the creation of the CDA. The following slide describes the role of the CDA board. Pre-bond issuance, it approves the special assessment methodology prepared by us, MuniCap, and then requests the boards of supervisors to levy the special assessments. Following the issuance of bonds, it only meets once per year to approve the updated special assessment roll and request that the Board of Supervisors collect the special assessments in the amounts shown in the assessment roll. The CDA also authorizes the payment of requisitions, which are described later in this presentation. However, this doesn't require the participation of the entire board. Only 2 board members are generally authorized to instruct payment of requisitions. This slide describes, this is not working. Okay, this slide, thank you. This slide now describes the role of the Board of Supervisors in relation to the CDA mechanism. Prior to bond issuance, approves the CDA by ordinance. The approval for the Fox Mill CDA is anticipated to occur on the July 7th meeting, approves a special assessment methodology, which again is prepared by MuniCap, and levies the special assessments via ordinance at the request of the CDA board. Following bond issuance, upon the request of the CDA, approves the collection of special assessments. Any questions so far?
Please continue.
Benefits of CDAs. CDA provides funding to ensure the construction of important public improvements, provides financing at a lower cost due to tax-exempt interest rates. The county is not the issuer of the bonds, and the county is not liable for the debt of the CDA. Now we get into an overview of the CDA financing itself. The bonds typically have a term of 30 years. They're issued by the CDA. The bonds are not general obligations of the county or CDA and are payable solely from the special assessments. Special assessments are collected in the same manner as the real property taxes. Bonds are issued when the development is ready to move forward and the developer is ready to construct the public improvements to be funded by the CDA. Any questions? Okay, so once bonds are issued, obviously the funds are used to pay for the improvements, the eligible improvements that the bonds are meant to finance, and the payments are made through the so-called requisition process. The developer can submit requisitions to pay for work that's been done to construct the public improvements at bond issuance. It can also submit monthly requisitions for work to be completed following the bond issuance. The requisition process is governed by the development or funding agreement and the trust indenture. A more detailed overview of the process is illustrated on this slide. It starts with the developer constructing the public improvements and incurring the cost to be financed with the bonds. Subsequently, the developer prepares and submits requisitions to be paid for the costs that have been incurred. The engineer reviews the requisition package to ensure all improvements have been constructed. Then MuniCap separately conducts an accounting review of requisitions to confirm compliance with bond documents, which are the indenture and the funding agreement. then based on the engineer and MuniCap review, the CDA instructs the trustee to pay the requisition, and the trustee moves forward with the payment. Any questions? Okay. Next, some additional details on special assessments. The special assessments represent an obligation of the property in the CDA district. They constitute a lien on the property. They're set to equal the debt service on the bonds, plus expenses related to the administration of the CDA. They are paid annually at the same time as real property taxes, may be prepaid at any time without penalty, and they are disclosed to future home buyers by multiple means, such as recorded in land records, included in sales contracts, and noted in HOA documents. Legal requirements of special assessments. The improvements funded by the special assessments must provide a special benefit to the property assessed. The improvements must be transferred to a public entity for ownership, which can be the CDA itself. The special assessments must be allocated to properties to reflect a reasonable benefit of the properties. Any questions so far? So ad valorem special taxes under Virginia law may also be collected as a revenue source for the repayment of the bonds. However, this is an uncommon practice. By law, the ad valorem special tax is limited to 25 cents per $100 of assessed value, and this amount will generally not provide sufficient revenues to repay bonds while the project is being built out. Even if the special tax is set at a high enough rate to pay debt service on the bonds, this still constitutes a disadvantage in the sense that the first homes will be paying too high of a special tax. The burden will be higher on the first homes that will be coming online. So it doesn't reflect that fair allocation like special assessments do. Unlike special assessments, ad valorem special taxes cannot be prepaid, and the Board of Supervisors must approve the ad valorem special tax rate each year, whereas special assessments are only levied once. For the proposed Fox Mill CDA, the target special assessments are as follows: $65 per month for townhomes and $90 per month for single family homes. Based on those target special assessments, we can support $6.2 million in gross bond proceeds, which entails $4 million in net bond proceeds available to pay public improvements. Of the $4 million, $3 million will be allocated towards the water capacity improvements, and the rest toward other developer-specific public improvements. Other uses of the $6.2 million in gross proceeds include issuance costs, which represent cost of market study, appraisal, consultants, counsel, debt service reserve fund, which is sized based on applicable tax and bond document requirements, to fund capitalized interest for a maximum term of 36 months, and to pay the underwriter's discount, which is typically 2% of the bond par amount. Any questions?
I don't think there are any questions. Dr. Leming.
I'm sure Dr. Lemon and I will have the same question. Timeline for assessment. So you said, okay, if the development is approved and we move forward with construction, you immediately apply for a $7 million bond, correct? Is that the timing of it?
Immediate. So it's not an application. It can be from 2-3 months up to 6-month process. It depends. But yes, we can begin the process to issue bonds, which includes preparation of various bond documents, market study, conduction of due diligence, etc., marketing period by the underwriter, posting of the offering document by the investors, pricing, and then issuance. Again, this process can last, depends on complications that may arise from 3
But
to
the
6
payment
months.
eventually falls on the individual homeowner, correct?
Correct, yes.
So you did indicate in your presentation that that first owner bears a huge responsibility, right? Correct?
That was the case
how
for the
does that
special
work? 'Cause that's-
tax.
Under ad valorem,
Yes,
they would.
correct.
Under
Okay.
special assessment, the individual homeowners all bear the
Hey,
same.
what do you think on it? Because I think you and I are on the same.
Yeah,
Oh.
you're okay.
No, it's right. You
I
can
don't
add.
wanna take-
No, you can add. That's okay. I think we're on the same page about
Yeah.
how all this gets played out
Mm-hmm.
for.
I think my colleague's concern is the latter scenario, that if the bonds were only financed through an ad valorem tax, it would pose a grossly disproportionate burden on the first or two.
That's correct,
Several
yes.
homeowners. And so your proposal is, although the ad valorem tax is available, that is not what you want to do.
Absolutely,
What
yes.
you want to do is a special assessment on each home.
That's
where
correct.
the burden for the repayment of the bonds would be proportionate and equalized amongst those homes.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Correct.
So you have, right, so you've got 400 so townhouses and homes, but we're almost certain that that's not going to, what happened immediately. So I guess my concern is how does the bond get paid off with very few homes already?
So, like I said, so I mentioned that one of the sources of those, that projected 6.2 million in gross bond proceeds, which may change, by the way, between now and the time we issue the bonds, goes towards funding of capitalized interest, which is an account to pay
Right, yep,
debt
okay.
service for the first 3 years to allow for the homes to be built. Also, if the homes aren't built and we don't have sufficient special assessments from built homes, then the responsibility falls on the developer. So there's developed and undeveloped property special assessments. So whoever owns the land,
And the amount, this is like a homeowners association, an HOA, that will, in addition to the tax on the houses?
correct, yes, it's an additional charge.
Okay.
My question, we have a particular member in the room who has a particular expertise in this. If we use, and by we, I mean the governing board of a locality, which is a part of the Commonwealth of Virginia, use taxpayer dollars to expense on a project, we are required to go through what's commonly referred to as the Virginia public procurement process, where we take a project, I want to do something with this Twix, and we send out requests for proposals, and whoever sends in the lowest bid gets to fix the Twix. And that way, we see that our taxpayers' dollars are going to the highest and best use or most efficient use. My concern here for these potential special assessment payers is that there is no public procurement negotiating bid process involved in this. Whoever the builder is just sends in the requisitions. They're not competitive bids. Am I correct?
So I'm not familiar with such process. In my experience, I haven't heard of a
It
procurement
doesn't look
process.
like it from the presentation.
No, yeah.
Dr. Leming, what I think the question you were asking is that for the bond, this assessment is for the borrowing of the money to provide the county with additional funds to upgrade our water and sewer system. So we're the ones who are receiving that money. The special assessment will be on each lot. The people who will be receiving that money aren't the builders of that. It will be the people that are building this stuff for us. The $3 million that we would have for our infrastructure, they would then submit the bills to the CDA to get those paid. So it's actually for the infrastructure we're going to be managing.
That's exactly
Well, it's more of a, it turns more into a proffer for us.
Yes.
This is how they're going to fund a proffer to provide the county for infrastructure improvements.
Yeah, it's a mechanism that doesn't involve procurement.
They are not hiring people to build water capacity improvement. They're providing us the funds to improve the water capacity.
But the infrastructure is part of the developer process, you know, the water lines and all that.
That's on them.
Right.
That's all the developer. This is a way for them to fund a proffer for this to be built. If this is to be built, and they wanted to provide us money for infrastructure improvements, this is their mechanism to fund the county those infrastructure improvements. That is not what is being put in the ground at this. It's not for what's being going in the ground, not that facility.
I mean, they did mention infrastructure and all that, but that's obviously some other aspects of the whole project.
It's our infrastructure, so it's the stuff to be able to supply them with enough water for those homes. We have to increase our infrastructure. The infrastructure within that subdivision is controlled through, they have to put in the water, the sewer, and the roads within the subdivision like any other developer does. They're going to pay tap fees for each one of those homes like every other developer does. This is additional money to the county so we can supply them the water they need because we're concerned we don't have enough water.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
respectfully, I don't grasp what you're saying. I remember the initial proffer, and it had nothing to do with the CDA. The existing proffers have nothing to do with the CDA. What the CDA does, if my understanding from my meeting with D.R. Horton at some length, is the CDA enables the builder to construct the roads, the water infrastructure, the sewer infrastructure within the development, which then the development homeowners will pay. That's my understanding.
And I'm sure that could be used that way. In our packet, where they brought it out, it says the developer shall submit a development agreement in connection with the approved community development authority, and that basically agree to contribute $3 million for any project, including the county's capital improvement project. So the way they're doing this one is they're going to provide us money for our capital projects, but others can be used to build roads and all that. And I guess that's right, Ms. Ducey-Ortiz.
Yeah. My name is Bob Evans. I'm with D.R. Horton. I live at 5111 Bayport Landing in Suffolk, Virginia. Thanks for listening to me. So the way we have it set up, that is correct. We are proffering $3 million for the water capacity improvement. But then there is another $1 million potentially out there that could go to site infrastructure. And so I think the question at the root of this is there a requirement to do a public review, a procurement kind of process? And I think that's not part of the CDA. That's not a requirement. Right. And so the question is, how do you make sure that we use the funds appropriately? Is that the essence of it?
I want to be more simple. Perhaps I am really overcomplicating this, and if I am, I apologize to you completely. Are proceeds from the bonds of the CDA going to be used to pay the proffer? Yes or no?
Yes.
Primarily because the water improvements, they benefit the CDA. So any improvements that benefit the homeowners can be financed.
It begs the question, does the CDA have to go out to bid for the improvements?
That's exactly where I'm driving to.
So if you give the county the money, that's all well and good, but the county can't use the money to do the improvements because we're not allowed to build private roads. So
that's where I'm going.
So if the CDA is having the bonds issued, $6.2 million, only $4 million of which is going to be utilized for construction. The other 2.2 of the 6.2 is going to be used for costs. It's an important question to be resolved is there a bidding process associated with construction of the improvements? Because if it was the county, it would have to be. Right. I haven't researched nor had been asked whether the Public Procurement Act applies to a CDA, which is a public body, which presumptively it would have to, but I don't know.
It's my understanding that $3 million of this $6.2 million borrowing, $3 million of it is coming to Gloucester County. $1 million is going to be held for them to do what they deem necessary in their project. The other 2.2 is going to be used for, issuance of the bonds and everything else that they have to do to operate this. It's my understanding from what I've read and what I've seen that $3 million of this is coming to us for our capital improvements for the water improvement, or for the water, water capacity. So it's my understanding that the $3 million that's coming to the county will be handled through our procurement processes. And the $1 million that they're using will be held through their processes, because I can't control a private entity's processes. That's my understanding of what I've seen and what I've read and what I was presented.
I just hope the CDA has good legal counsel who can advise them as to the constraints upon utilization of their $1 million. I think, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
other than the only using $4 million of the $6.2 million, which may be concern to some, I want to point out that Municap, I assume, was chosen by the developer, but not all CDAs are instituted or implemented through Municap. So I want to make sure there isn't only one vendor, but we didn't decide that. Not that there's anything wrong with Municap.
Municap is the gold standard for CDAs, just as far as that goes.
We administer the CDAs on that. Oh, sorry.
Come closer. Sorry.
Yes, so that's third slide shows the list of the CDAs that we administer. We administer all the CDAs in Virginia. So currently our contract is with D.R. Horton. At bond issuance, we terminate that contract and we transition to a new contract with the CDA and serve as the administrator for the CDA.
So all CDAs in Virginia are administered by Municap?
Yes.
Every single one?
It's not.
I can't guarantee for sure. If not all, maybe 99%.
Okay.
I hear Keenan Rice say that all the time.
Mr. Hutson.
For the 700, what is the average cost or that you're projecting for the townhouses and the single homes?
The townhomes would be in the mid 300s, and the singles would be in the high 400s to low 500s.
So what you're basically projecting is 2 cents per hundred for the value of the houses to come up with these numbers on slide 15.
I'm not familiar with slide 15. Can we?
He didn't know what.
Oh,
Right there.
that's right. We're projecting that based on what our home buyers can afford. So we actually, this entire process has been driven by what we think a home buyer can comfortably afford to pay on a monthly basis, and that's how we arrived at the bond amount.
I assume that's based on all the previous experience that you've had with other homes in other areas, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I've been a part of many of the CDAs listed on that list, and they've been incredible projects. Quarter Path in Williamsburg is an example of a CDA that worked out incredibly well. So we're happy to have the opportunity to do that.
Dr. Leming.
So, sorry, I did want to clarify, because you were concerned about the eligibility of the $1 million. So the vetting of the eligible improvements goes through a very rigorous process, which involves bond counsel, like you mentioned. It involves an entire working group of various attorneys and engineers. So there's nothing to worry about that, the eligibility of the improvements. Currently, we're in a preliminary phase, preliminary financing plan, and at a high level, the improvements that we're currently assuming may be eligible for financing appear to be so based on general criteria, but again, they will need to be vetted by bond counsel ultimately.
Our county attorney is here to worry about stuff like this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dr. Leming.
were there other adjustments to the other proffers?
Well, there probably, I know there were some, but I don't think that's the onus of our discussions for tonight.
That's really
This is the one that we're trying to decipher if we want to move forward with this. And there's no decision tonight. This is merely presentation for our knowledge so that we can make this decision on the heels of an approval for Fox Center if it goes that route. Because in order for them to provide us this particular proffer of $3 million, in order for them to be able to do this, they would have to have a CDA to pull that off.
I understand that so far. I'm really asking if any of the other proffers are tied to the CDA.
I believe this is the only one, according to Ms. Ducey Ortiz's head nod there.
And
So
you said,
another, say, a proffer of $500,000 is unrelated to the CDA.
In the proffer, this is the only one that is contingent on the board adopting a CDA. There are other proffers that are different from what was at the planning commission,
you answered it.
including money for the fire
answered it.
department.
Thank
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hanson?
So if I'm correct, because when I met with you guys, the CDA also, you said any improvements to property, so it could pay for your swimming pool, your fitness center, those kinds of improvements, or no?
No, it could not. It can only be publicly, infrastructure that benefits the public.
Gotcha.
So it's 100%. We could not use it for an amenity unless we open the amenity up to the public at large, which we do not plan on doing.
And is there any possibility down the road that you could increase that on the homeowners, or is this a set? It's in the HOAs, okay. Well, which can go up.
the CDA fee won't change because that's tied to their bond and everything else. Any other fees to do improvements could be through an HOA or some other, but
Okay.
the CDA fee
CDA
won't
is
go
just
up or
for-
down based on, it's part of a bond, so once it's set for the
Levy
time of
bonds,
that.
correct.
Okay.
I was going to ask him one question that might help you all also. The attorney brought up that there's about $1 million that they're looking for their side of the infrastructure. For a subdivision this size, what do you think this is a ballpark figure for your infrastructure between water, sewer, and roads? What would you say you were going to spend on a project like this?
It's about $40 million.
So the $1 million really isn't doing most of the work for them. It's doing enough to cover some of the things up front that they have to pay for before they get started on everything else.
That's correct. One item I want to make sure we're all aware of that Ivana pointed out, in that if the CDA does not, it's never going to be a burden on the county, and I think that's something that's very important. And so then the question is, it's a burden on the community, and what happens if there's a significant slowdown in the market? And I think that as a work session, it's just very important to talk through all the eventualities there. And so we've seen CDAs where they have to be paused basically and restructured, but never does that become a burden on the county, and the market takes care of that. We are seeing that in Portsmouth right now, where there's a community coming back together, and developers are stepping in, renewing the bonds, and the community's coming back together again. So I think it's just very important to note that the CDA is a fantastic mechanism to get projects like this done.
Yes, the only burden to the county is these meetings, getting the CDA approved, and then just assisting with the collection of the assessments every year. Just collected once or twice a year with the real property taxes.
So just want to make sure, so the county will be collecting the assessments?
Yes,
for-
they're
Okay, so it's.
they're
a
collected
special-
along with the real property
okay.
taxes.
So there'll be, again, a separate accounting for that money, so it's like the school tax, there'll be a separate fund that we'll see from the treasury report, that aspect. Right, right, yeah.
When I talked to the treasurer today, she said in her mind, it's like a sanitary district. It'll be another thing that's on the tax bill that'll be collected separately.
Any other questions? Mr. Hutson?
So this amount cannot change annually?
This one. That amount will not.
30 years.
30 years, it's set for 30 years.
The
Now, their HOA
homeowners
fees
can
could
always
change.
prepay. They can decide to prepay at any time.
The homeowner?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Go ahead, y'all talk.
Well, we're waiting on you because I'm not sure what other questions we have.
He's trying to figure out what the total payment is over the life of a bond to a single homeowner. Am I right?
So, Mr. Chair, just want to make sure, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So timeline of this is information. So in June, we're going to hear the request for the subdivision, correct? And if we approve that. Oh, is it July? Okay, so if we approve that, then we get the CDA next, correct?
It might go the other way, but
My thoughts on this is we will have probably in our packet motion to approve or a motion for denial. And then I think if we, no, for the project, because we won't do the CDA unless the project passes. So I'm assuming that we'll have an ordinance for approval or maybe one for denial, and then after that, we will act on a CDA if it is approved, would be the way I would think this would be played out. Potentially. That'll be up to Mr. Wilmot's discretion as well.
We have draft ordinances, and the CDA ordinance might come first because it's contingent on approval of the rezoning.
That's fine,
so
too.
It really could go either way, but they're certainly, one is dependent on the other.
That's why we have you, sir.
I was looking for the reason.
So are there any other questions?
You said the homeowners could prepay. How would you keep track of which homeowner prepaid for this bond so it wouldn't be taxed by the county?
So our admin department or fund here takes care of that. So we update the special assessment roll every year. So each parcel is tracked each year, and
Okay.
it's reflected in that roll.
The big Excel sheet.
Hi. Just one clarification. That $65 does change. That's for the first year. So first year after a house is built or townhomes is built is $65. After that, it's 2% increase each year.
Yeah. So it's basically the special assessments are levied to. Oh, sorry. They're levied to an amount necessary to cover principal interest on bonds as well as CDA admin expenses. So the bonds are modeled to increase at about 2% annually, and therefore there's a slight increase of 2% in the special assessments as well. But from the levy amount, the upfront levy, the assessments don't change. There won't be any surprises after the assessment levy is approved.
Okay, so the county does the assessment. They get the money, it goes into an account. How does that money get transferred to you guys to pay off the bond? Is that done with, explain?
So, are you referring to prepayment or?
Well, right,
No,
so the county is assessing property, we get an assessment.
Oh,
It goes
it's
into
through
the
trustee.
county, so then there's got to be a transfer from the county to you guys, right?
No, not to us. It's to the trustee. We'll choose CDA. We'll choose a trustee, and then usually it's a bank, and then trustee will receive the money, like CDA, like county will wire the fund to the trustee, and then trustee will pay the bond.
So, in essence, we could be getting some interest from the money that we collect, correct?
Yes.
No.
it would accrue in that account, which is theirs.
No. Yeah. If
Here, but, excuse me. So we did have a meeting with the treasurer and the commissioner of revenue, and Keenan said that the county does get to keep the interest, right? Isn't that correct? Because we just pay them, and then we have the account, so.
We can check on that to confirm.
And also, like, another thing, like, I want to clarify is, out of that $6.2 million, the only cost is the cost of issuance, like $500,000, and the $60,000 of underwriters' costs, and other costs are mostly 16% of the reserve fund, because like the bondholders, like when they buy it, they want some money set aside to pay if like some homes are delinquent or collection is not up to date, etc. So like that money is just to make sure that everything goes smoothly. If any delinquency happens, like the trustee will draw from the reserve fund to pay the bond. Yeah. So also at the end, like at the last year, like we will use that reserve fund amount to pay off the last portion of the bond. So that is not the cost; it's just the money set aside to pay at the end, like, and to make sure if bad weather happens, there's some money set aside. And also, like, there's about 10% of that is, as discussed, it's a capitalized interest account money. So during the build, when no homes are developed, we will use that capitalized interest money to pay the interest for the first 3 years. So these are not the cost, it's just money set aside to pay a portion of the bond.
Mr. Nicosia.
2 questions. So this $65 or $90, whichever way you want to look at it, it has a 2% increase yearly, if I understood that correctly. Is there a cap on that, or is that yearly for the life of the term of the bond of 30 years? And then my second question is, and it might sound odd, but it makes sense to me. If I buy a house in Fox Mill and I sell that house, is this $65 or $90 or whatever it happens to be at the time, is that transferred to the new homeowner?
Size of the parcel, not the other.
Yes, Dr. Leming confirmed that. And that's correct. The special assessments are collected during the life of the bond, so for the 30 years.
So someone coming in 30 years from now and this and all that stuff is paid off, they come in without having to pay anything, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Except the HOA fees. So, any other questions? Or at least any other questions for tonight? Mr. Hutson.
Would y'all be in a position to build this if the CDA wasn't approved?
No, we are not. We tried everything we could to do it, but the project will not bear the finances of providing that money up front.
But that's because of the $3 million proffer.
Yes, it's
So if you don't offer the proffer, though, you could build this project without a $3 million proffer if it was approved.
yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you all very much for your time. We do really appreciate it.
Thanks for your attention. And you have my contact information at the end of the PowerPoint, as well as Keenan Rice, who's the president of the company. So if any questions come up, feel free to reach out.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we will move to our public utilities update from Ms. Katie Legg. Katie, why don't we take a couple second pause and we'll let I think there might be one to leave. And we'll let them leave, and then you can get started. Yeah, please. Yep, absolutely.
I feel like I'm twisted too far.
Yep, you're fine.
Okay, good evening. So tonight I'm going to give you the first of what will probably be monthly updates as part of the disbanding of the Utility Advisory Committee. So for tonight's update, I thought that I would start with a general overview, not only for you all, but also for members of the public. So first I'm going to start with who we are. I'll tell you a little bit about the sewer system, the water system, what our regulatory requirements are, and then what our financials are looking like for this year. So here is our org chart. We have 28 full-time employees funded. We currently have 4 vacancies. Those 4 vacancies have been there for close to a year. Thankfully, we did have 6 vacancies, but we have since filled 2 of them over the last several months, which has been very nice. So from an administrative standpoint, of course, we have customer service. We have 2 folks in the office who handle 5,200 plus customer accounts. They handle all of the billing, which is printed through a third-party service. They handle all of the work orders for the field crew. They handle all of the billing complaints, and they do it so well that very, very, very rarely do any of those complaints get escalated to my office. And then, of course, we also have engineering and we have budgeting. From the water treatment plant, we have a plant manager. We have 2 mechanical employees for the entire property. Not only do they manage all of the equipment and preventative maintenance, but they also manage the grounds of the water treatment plant. We do get some assistance from the trustees at the jail, which have been very helpful. Then we have 9 operators. So we are a Class 2 facility, which means that our operators, we need to have at least 1 Class 2 licensed operator on site at all times. Our lead operators are Class 1, which is the highest, as is our plant manager. Our other operators are all Class 2 at this point, except for 1 who is still working his way up through. So that is a very good place to be. We will never be a Class 1 facility, at least not likely in my lifetime, because in order to be one of those, you have to serve over 50,000 connections and have 50 million gallons a day. We're not going to do that. From the distribution and pump station side, these guys are all cross-trained. So our line maintenance crew has a foreman, and then he has 5 guys that work under him. These are the guys that are out in the field, fixing line repairs, installing new meters, checking meters that are broken, any sort of work orders. And as you can see, we have 3 vacancies right now in our line maintenance crew. Our pump station crew is 3 people, and we have 19 pump stations. One of those is vacant. That position has been vacant since I got here. And that position is extremely important because you see where it says instrumentation. That is highly specialized when we're talking about the instrumentation that is in our pump stations, talking about alarms, those sorts of things. Right now, that is being filled with a work as required individual who is retired from another locality. Real old school way of doing things, but he is actually teaching the 2 guys that we have in pump stations so that when he finally says, I'm retired for real, then they'll be good to go. We have 1 inspector. This inspector does exactly what it sounds like. So new construction, new connections, he is responsible for going and looking at those before those connections are made. In addition, he is our line locator. So all those missed utility tickets that get called in, he is the one responsible for doing that. So last month alone, we had 300 811 line locates. 1 person. And again, because we are so lean, they are all cross-trained. our utility inspector and our utility foreman are the only two that we have in the department that have CDLs, so they can drive all of our equipment. That's not good enough, but getting them certified costs a significant amount of money, and we lose them for about 6 weeks to do that. And then frequently when that happens, they're being recruited while they're in class. Also, we have on-call from the line maintenance and the pump station side. We have 3 on-call shifts all the time. There is 1 for distribution, there's 1 for pump station, and then we have a backup shadow on-call, which is one of our more senior folks, because we have a lot of new staff. So we need to make sure that we have someone who is required to pick up the phone at 2 a.m. if one of our new on-call guys doesn't quite understand what he needs to be doing. So these guys get a lot of stuff done. So next I'll talk a little bit about the county sewer system. Some of this may be repetitive to things that you have seen before, but again, I think it's really important, and hopefully that it will help keep some more accurate information out there. You hear sometimes that our sewer system can't handle anymore, and that's not quite accurate. So this is a graphic of all of the county-owned pump stations. There are 19 of them. We have about 30 miles of gravity sewer and about 7 miles of county-owned force main and about 500 manholes. Again, this is a 3-person crew that manages these pump stations. The pump stations from Courthouse South are all direct connected into HRSD. So capacity is not generally an issue. So everything from just a little bit below that red star, so right at station 21, we don't really have a capacity issue. However, those pump stations, when they were installed, were designed based on a specific service area, and a lot of times they get put into place from subdivisions. So anytime a rezoning request comes through our office or site plan, we look at the pump station that is in that area and whether or not the way that it was built, 1, thought about that particular area and whether or not it can connect, and 2, how much extra capacity there is. So again, from Courthouse South, not a lot of issue with capacity. The courthouse is a different situation. Oh, but first, so this is an overlay of the HRSD service area. So the light green area just shows what HRSD accepts as their service area. This does not mean that sewer service is available in all of these places, because those dark green spots is where county sewer service is available, and you cannot direct connect into HRSD. So this is just saying that they accept that this area is where they think that sewer can be provided, but does not necessarily mean that it's available to all of those properties. Okay, now the courthouse. So you all have seen this before. These are the 5 pump stations up here in the courthouse. So I'll start down at the bottom right. Pump station 12 in the blue box. This is off Belroy Road. Up above that is pump station 19, which is next to Food Lion. And then across from that is 22, which is in the subdivision right down the road here on Main Street. Pump station 11 in orange is right here across from Ace Hardware. And pump station 13 is behind Southern States. So our capacity concerns here, why we have that is because pump station 13 down at the bottom right is the only one that is connected to HRSD. All of these other pump stations are called lift stations. So they collect it, they gather it, and they send it to another pump station. So pump station 12 goes to, 19 goes to 11. 12 and 22 go to 13. 11 also goes to 13. So all of those are being lifted and collected and going to 13. So 13 and 11 are over capacity. 12 12, 19, and 22, we don't have capacity issues at those particular pump stations, but because they're not connected into the HRSD system, we can't support any development added to those pump stations. This actually came up about a year and a half ago or so. We had a developer who wanted to potentially utilize some property just north of pump station 19, and we had to say that we couldn't support it. And that is when we started doing a deep dive and realized that a lot of this should have been brought to light sooner. What we also have here are some issues with the sewer lines themselves. So we call them the basins. The basin for pump station 11, so pretty much all of that you see up at the top that's kind of highlighted in that sort of pink color. There are easements back in there where our lines are that have probably never been cleared, which means those lines have probably not been inspected in quite some time. So our folks were out there several months ago, and they spent a few months clearing the easement from Winecott, and they made it as far as Lewis Avenue. So this goes back, way back in there. We wanted to make it all the way to pump station 11, and it was just impossible. The fact that they were having to cut down trees that were really quite large says to us that nobody had ever been back there. So once we cleared that easement, we were able to CCTV it. So we have just received those videos, and staff are in the process of reviewing them. So for reference, you've heard me talk about the master plan. That is from 2019, which means it was using data from 17 and 18, which means we're approaching 10 years old on some of this data. So this list is the list of projects that were prioritized in that master plan. That left column with the date is the year that that corresponding item was going to be over capacity. So you see there were quite a few that were already over capacity when the master plan was created. And then we ran into some more. Sure.
If you go back to the one that shows that, if she was talking about 11 and 13, if you see the lines she's talking about that we haven't seen in decades, those are probably the oldest lines in the county. And we're now looking at all this from 12, 19, and 22 having to go through the infrastructure that's the oldest in the county. So, you just count your days on when something could happen. This because the pressures we got going through there, the flows we got going through there could be a problem. So that's just on top of everything else she's telling you.
And 11 is one that has that pipe that hasn't been fixed yet, right?
That is correct.
So that's the one that's sitting out in the open that if it breaks, we got some big issues.
Yes, that is
Because all that
correct.
stuff goes down to the creek.
That is correct.
I thought VDOT was going to help us with that.
They are. We are still working on getting a clear response. So the right column, of course, lists the item, and none of these had been done when I arrived in '24. So what I have started to do is place them in our capital plan because we know that they need to be addressed. So those first three that are highlighted, that sort of light red, those are happening now because of the work that we're trying to do with pump station 11, the work that we're trying to do with the sewer line clearing. The next set in orange is set for 27, 28 based on the capital plan. Those are going to be the improvements that we're working on in preparation for the potential new force main up the bypass. And then in yellow, we're looking at 2030. That's because we think that if we're going to go ahead and move forward with this force main, we can purchase new pumps for pump station 13 that will get us through the next several years to allow us to take care of this big project first and then come back in 2030 and redo pump station 13. It needs to be moved up on the property so it's a little bit higher elevation, and then we can still use the structure that's there, either as excess wet well. We've talked about having our own sort of spoils site. Right now, when our guys vector out, whether it's cleaning our own pump stations or if there's some sort of spill, if it is anything other than sewage, liquid, it has to be hauled to the HRSD facility in Nansemond. So that's pretty much all day. Yes.
If whenever the reserves comes online, would they build their own pump station?
They have 3 as part of their master plan.
Okay. And if the development of Foxville was approved,
There will be one in there as well.
there'll be another pump station.
Yeah, they will be required to do their own master water and sewer plan as well, and that has to be done up front.
Okay.
So, this is, again, I've talked about it before, the capital plan as it stands now, and how we're going to address some of these. Capacity and expansion standpoint is looking at those pump station upgrades. Pump Station 11, that work is ongoing. That design stands at about 95% complete. And I probably said that last time I was here, because at this point, what we need is from HRSD to give us their flow calculations, because we want to design it one way for a certain gallons per minute flow, and we need them to tell us that their force main can accept that. So we're having some meetings of the minds on that. Yes?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but again, 11, in past years when we get a lot of rain floods, right? Is that an issue that we can resolve? Because we haven't hit, I mean, fortunately it's dry, but if we get a hurricane with inches of rain, are we ready for that?
Bring it, wash it down the hill. FEMA will back up the money truck and we will get it fixed. That's the best thing that could happen to us
I
right
will
now.
need to go on vacation.
I'll get FEMA to pay for it. That's what we need to happen. We can wash out a couple of
tropical.
roads in the county with it.
So the design of Pump Station 11 was originally designed to get it out of the floodplain. So the plan is to literally build it on top of what is already there. So yes, it will take care of that. Pump Station 13, I've talked about just the pump replacement for the next few years. And then, of course, the force main extension. So the HRSD force main comes up 17 North, and then it branches and goes up Main Street and ends at Pump Station 13. So if we were to extend it from that branch out at Main Street and come up the bypass, we could then go as far as Pump Station 19, stop there, connect those directly in. A few holdups with that, but we are still preliminary, is discussing with VDOT where that's going to go. We would like it to go in the median. It makes the most sense to us. There's some talk about maybe because it's a limited access highway that may not be permissible. The county owns property on the south side of it, but not the entire way down 17. Plus, with the big ravine in there, the logistics of it, that might increase the cost. So we're waiting on a call back from VDOT on that too.
Do we need to go to VDOT and start applying pressure to get the limited access taken off of that highway? Because honestly, you go from 45 to 105 back to 45 at the light at Belroy. I mean, that is an absolute drag strip.
It is.
We might need to have that as a legislative priority for next year to get that limited access removed, because then we can ask then for the right in, right out for Fox Mill Center as well.
Yeah. And get the sewer in the center line. That would be the
correct.
That would be the logical thing. But we already know sometimes
VDOT doesn't know who they work for, so.
And then the last thing about the force main is that we did have a discussion with HRSD. This is not something that they would take over, so this would still be a county-owned force main. We are looking at, at probably an 8-inch. We could potentially go to a 10-inch, but then we worry about maybe the flows not being enough. But HRSD has just said generally if it's less than 18 to 24 inches, they're not going to take it over. So this would still be a county-owned force main. Okay, so the water system. I'll talk a little bit about plant operations and I'll touch on capacity. Bless you. He's allergic to this presentation.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you. Or the sewer.
Yeah, maybe the sewer. This water's clean. Okay, so the water treatment plant operations. We currently operate at 16 hours a day. So roughly our max capacity for production is 1.6 million gallons a day. And when I say production, that's how much we withdraw. So in 2025, we produced 1.47 million gallons per day. So our finished treated water was 1.29 million gallons per day. I broke down there for you so you could see, out of that, how much we collect money for. 972,000 gallons a day. So 58,000 gallons a day is non-revenue. So this is our flushing, testing, that sort of thing. And we're looking at 260,000 gallons a day of water loss. And I mean true loss, because we don't know where it is.
Where does the fire flow fall into these categories? Is that in the flushing category?
The fire department?
Fire department for pulling?
We don't account for that unless they have put a hydrant meter on. So for example, what happened yesterday, if they don't have a hydrant meter, we can estimate. So it's very similar to when they fight a fire, they're not going to take the time to put
So is that going into the 260,000
Yes.
category? Okay,
Yes.
that's what I was
Oh,
asking.
yes.
Thank you.
So in 2025, our average was about 20% water loss. We like to keep it below that. If you get too close to 30, you become deficient according to the Office of Drinking Water. And then in the pie chart below, I have put what our customer base is. It's about 70% residential, 25% commercial, and then the other 5% is government and state.
Are we getting a read on whether we're getting better data from the AMIs regarding water loss?
I don't know from water loss standpoint, because what we're getting from AMI is billed. Right. So we have been looking at it over the last year and looking at our billed amounts by gallon versus dollar amount. And we have seen an increase, probably not the 10% that the company may have quoted in the beginning.
That's where I was going at, was what we were quoted and what's actually happening with the water loss.
Yeah, our revenue collections were trending at about 15% increase over last year. So you figure with a 14% rate increase, yeah. So from where the water comes from, about 70% of it comes from the reservoir, and about 30% of it comes from the deep well. So looking ahead to future plant operations, we know we need to go to 24 hours. I have been saying this for over a year. It's better for the equipment, number one. The startup and the shutdown gets very difficult on our equipment, especially with as old as it is, and it hasn't been maintained as well as it should have been. So with that comes operating costs. We do have 2 additional operators in the FY27 budget, but those are costed not to start until January. And then, of course, there's an increase in chemicals, electricity, whatnot. We're probably looking at a 15% increase in costs. So all of those things have been accounted for in the FY27 budget. So you would think then, let's just go to 24 hours, we're going to make more water. So it's not that easy. We go to 24 hours. If we don't make any other changes and we just go to 24 hours, we'll be lucky to get to 2 million gallons a day. Because we have a couple of issues. One, we can only pull in but so much given our pumps that we currently have. But 2 is our clear well capacity. So our clear well is the very last spot before the water goes into the distribution system. This is where it gets its chlorine contact time for disinfection, and it has to have a minimum of 30 minutes of contact time. Your clear well should be at minimum 10% of your production capacity in size. Our clear well is 140,000 gallons. So it is not at 10% of what our max capacity is now, let alone when we go to 24 hours. So if we change and go to 24 hours, upgrades are needed, which are part of the FY27 capital budget. So this includes the raw water pump. The design for that started this year, and then the construction will finish in FY27. So the raw water pump is down that catwalk at the reservoir. There are already 3 pumps there. And when it was built, somebody was thinking ahead, thank you, that there's already the spot for the 4th pump, which is excellent, because some of the changes that might be coming from the state, if we had to make any changes to that structure, we might have to go through an entirely new permitting process. And that would be expensive and a nightmare. So that raw water pump will allow us to pull in significantly more water. And then comes the 1 million gallon storage. Because we want to construct that on site, that can be used as additional capacity for the clear well. So the thought is it's going to come in from the plant into the clear well, pipe to the 1 million gallon storage tank, and it can come right back out and go into the distribution system. So it has achieved that contact time, and we're storing water should we run into any issues. The only thing unknown here is that we may have distribution pumps within the water treatment plant that may need to be addressed. And I think as we start to go through the design process of the 1 million gallon storage, our engineer will be looking at that. So this is our distribution system. You have seen this before as well. So as I mentioned, we have a crew of 6 that maintain over 100 miles of water line. We have over 750 hydrants, over 3,500 valves. We have 3 water towers, and those are maintained and inspected by a third-party contractor. As I've shared with you, I think a few weeks ago, we did receive those inspection reports back for this year's inspection of the towers. And then they're also on staggered terms for what gets an interior clean out, what gets an exterior wash. The 1 million gallon tank gets repainted once every 10 years. So, they touch up Gloucester Dukes for us. Because our crew is small, they cross-train, and also with the vacancies. So when we have a repair that needs to happen, we'll pull in our pump station guys, we'll even pull in our inspector and our utility supervisor, who's more of a higher level. He is a working supervisor, but he does have some administrative tasks, but it becomes all hands on deck. So this map actually shows you where the current water lines are on those blue lines, which makes plenty of sense. And the blue cloud around it, when we were going through one of our permit renewals, we had to estimate what water use might look like by the year 2040. And of course, we have no idea. So what we did is I asked GIS to take this map of our water system and say, just expand it 1,500 feet in either direction. Now, the little blob up there towards the top that doesn't have water lines, this accounts for the reserves / the villages and potentially Fox Mill. So, these are the projects that were in the 2019 master plan. In the left column is the priority ranking that they were given in the plan. A priority of 1 means that the fire flow was less than 500 gallons per minute. And in some cases, that fire flow is about 50 gallons per minute. So, none of these had been addressed. There was a general plan right before I got here that sort of listed these in some order. Since then, I've tried to start taking them and putting them into priority order for the most part. So if it has a priority of 2, it means that the pipe is asbestos concrete. We want to get it out of the ground. It may or may not have a fire flow issue, but most of that has to deal with asbestos concrete. If it has a priority of 3, The fire flow is above 500 gallons per minute, which is okay for residential, but we're aiming for anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800, depending on where some of these are. So if it has a ranking of a 3, it is over 500 gallons per minute, but it could be not quite as close to 10% of the goal. So it ranks a little bit lower. And then a ranking of a 4 means that it's already within 10% of its goal of fire flow. So if you notice on the second set, at the very top, I crossed off Colony Circle. That was listed as a 3 in the master plan. This is one that we replaced last year. So these, again, are color-coded based on where I have placed them in the CIP. So those top 4 that are in that light red, those are slated for FY27, and they are in the capital plan that was adopted. Those projects are roughly $1.75 million. The orange is in 2029, and that is roughly $3.26 million. That 3.26 also includes potential betterment of the water lines along 17 based on the VDOT widening of the road. And then the yellow is in 2030 for $3 million. Green is in 2031 for $4.3 million. And blue is 2032 of $2.5 million. I will note that in 2032, that top item there, Berkeley Point subdivision, Berkeley Drive, is one that we have already had issues with and had to repair, and we are likely going to have to go back. So this may be one that's not going to last until 2032. And that is some of the issue that we've had over the last couple of years is we have a plan and then something else comes along. So we adjust. So looking at...
To that point, Katie, isn't Main Street now one of your, it wasn't on that list,
It
it's
is
one of the
not on
top
that
ones?
list. Main Street was never in the master plan. So it's not on that list, but it is in the adopted budget, yes.
Because it became a priority.
Correct. So that goes to this slide with the capital improvement plan. So the capacity and expansion that I've talked about at the water treatment plant, long-term expansion of the water treatment plant needs to be seriously considered for redundancy purposes, any sort of additional growth. 17 million is probably not going to do it by the time we get to it. And then water line improvements, as Mr. Baines said, Main Street water line has been added to the FY27 budget. This is phase 1. Which includes from this point north at the intersection to just on the other side of the court circle. And then 21 projects over 5 years to address fire flow and pipe material at about $15 million. So now the really fun stuff. So there are a lot of permits and regulations that govern drinking water and plant operations and pump stations. So we'll start with our favorite. There is a typo on this slide. Our permit is 5, they are 5 years. They are not 15 years. So VIPDs, this is our Virginia Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Our permit expires in 2030. We have just renewed this. However, we are under consent decree with DEQ because of this permit. So this permit regulates the discharged water from the water treatment process. So it has nothing to do with the water quality that people are drinking. It is strictly about our wasted water from the treatment process. So we have monthly and quarterly reports, and we test for chlorides, pH, and toxicity. And basically, we need to make sure that we are not killing the water fleas because they are highly susceptible to these toxicity tests, and that's how they can tell whether or not your water is toxic. So, as I mentioned, we are under consent decree. So how we got there, Apparently, the department had been receiving warning letters since 2020. And when I arrived in 2024, we received a notice of violation. So since then, we worked extensively. Poor Ted probably had to read way more than he wanted to read about this permit. We worked extensively with his office as well as DEQ and our consulting engineer to come to an agreement under consent order that was signed in May of 2025. So that consent order, basically what they say is our chloride levels were too high. So the reason is, for the most part, the water that we're pulling out of the ground from the well that goes into the RO plant is already extremely salty. Then, as part of the RO process, that wasted water is even saltier. So those chlorides is what we are discharging into our own stream on the other side of the dam. So our numbers were too high, and that's where all those warning letters came in. So our consent order now says you have to achieve long-term durable compliance with this chloride limit that we have given you, and you have to tell us how you're going to do it. So we spent several months and many, many meetings trying to tell them how we were going to do it, and they didn't like any of our answers. So consent decree, we have put those same answers into a concept engineering report, which was required as part of this consent decree. That report was submitted in October of 25, and we have not received any response. So that report says, we sent to them, says we have 5 potential options for long-term durable compliance. And of course, they all have a cost. And we're going to start with option 1, and we have now said to them in subsequent quarterly reports, if this option is not approved by you all, then we may consider some other legal action. Because they have yet to tell us what regulation prevents us from meeting this requirement.
What was option 1?
So option 1 is
move the discharge?
No. So that was our interim, and that was really just to buy us some time. We knew that wasn't going to do but so much. So our first option is the spillway tower improvements. So that's a project for a grant through DCR right now. So what this is going to do is it is going to measure the flow of the water from the spillway, and then it's going to measure the chlorides as they're being discharged. So we can then in real time see what the chlorides are, can do the calculation, and if we need to release some more water over the spillway to dilute the water, we can. We have 20 years of data that show naturally this is already occurring 87% of the days. DEQ didn't like any of that answer either.
I mean, you have provided those graphics in earlier presentations.
Oh, yeah. So that's the project we're working on now, and this will all be tied to SCADA, and it will all be automated so that our operators can see all of this in real time. And if for some reason, let's say we're experiencing some lower levels in the reservoir, we can say, don't run the RO plant. So that is actually where we want to stop, is that project and be done with it. The other options include pulling in more water from the reservoir to a mixing basin before it ever gets discharged. They said, how about you run it to the Ware River? What was the other one? Oh, potentially groundwater injection. The problem with that, again, is that it's already too salty, so we're not actually solving any problems there. And then there were a couple of non-viable options, and one included running it to a manhole to HRSD, but HRSD won't accept it. So, groundwater withdrawal. This allows us to actually pull water out of our 1,500-foot well. So when I did this presentation for the packet last week, our current permit expired March of 2026, but it was administratively continued because our new permit was still in process. On May 14th, I got our new permit. It took us almost a year to go through this process. So this, again, it regulates the water that we withdraw. It's a thorough review of historical processes. We had to create a new water conservation and management plan, it was pretty time intensive. So the new permit regulates how much water we can pull out of the well. And again, this is about protecting the aquifer, because they went through a period of time where they were just approving all of these new wells. And where our well sits at the edge of the aquifer, our water is only getting saltier because the folks west of us are pulling all of this water from the same aquifer. So those limits are, they are monthly and they are yearly. So we can pull 31 million gallons a month, and 242 million gallons a year. That is for the first 13 years. And then in years 14 and 15, it steps down to 200 million gallons a year. Again, they want to limit use of groundwater. We felt comfortable with that because originally they were going to start stepping down our withdrawal rates in year 2. And we were very concerned, especially given how old some of our stuff is. So, and then the surface water withdrawal does not get its own slide. This is where we get our water from the reservoir. This is a grandfathered permit. There is a piece of paper that is handwritten from 1988-89 that says we can pull out 4 million gallons a day. And that's what we're going off of. But stay tuned, because the state has had a working group over the last year or so about how to make those grandfathered facilities go through the permit process. It kind of died towards the end of last year, but I expect it will probably rear its ugly head again.
Okay, Ms. Lake?
Yes.
Earlier you referenced a notation that we should be considering an expansion of the water treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of permitting timeline, not the construction, what kind of permitting timeline, say from start to getting the permit to do that would?
That would be at least a year, at least.
A year to 18 months, because our grandfathered one, like she says, it says 4 million gallons written on a piece of paper and mailed in. I'm sure she didn't go into a lot of detail, but with the RO plant, the first time we had the permit, you just drew the water down and saw how quickly it recharged, and we did in a couple wells. This last time they had to calculate the whole water table and how much it got drawn down around the wells. So the reporting now is much more detailed than it was 15 years ago.
So we also have a dam permit. So this is administered through the Department of Conservation and Recreation. We have a 2-year conditional permit. This is all about the structural integrity of the dam. We did used to have a full compliance certificate that was rescinded in 2021, and it has been conditional since then. So every 2 years we are renewing it. It does expire October of this year. So what I don't believe that they will give us a full compliance one again. Most of the issues before have been taken care of, so the excessive vegetation on the dam, the emergency action plan updates, all of those things have been done. However, we have not been able to inspect the tow drain of the dam, which just sits along the base of the dam for regular groundwater seepage. And so we are hoping, as part of the grant project, to be able to inspect it so that if we know if there are any issues, we may be able to apply for a future grant to fix those issues. So as we go through this process, that will give us an idea of whether or not we'll qualify for a full compliance permit or not. Office of Drinking Water, through the Department of Health, we do have a monthly operating report that is an extensive review of our treatment process. So we have about an 11 tabbed spreadsheet that we collect data every day, all month long. Lab results, chemical usage, all of our distribution numbers, our billed metered usage, all of that goes into this spreadsheet. They also review our plant operations alongside DEQ. So when we were going for this groundwater withdrawal permit, ODW was also looking at our plant operations. They are huge about communicating with us during emergencies and being prepared. They are who we go through if we need to issue a boil water notice. There is a matrix now for a boiled water notice, specific to if you have line breaks. So for example, when we had the one on Marius and everybody was concerned about Achilles and are we going to have to boil water, there's a very detailed matrix on their website which has been very helpful. If you don't have any sort of contamination in the pipe and you have been able to maintain system pressure, you don't have to issue this boil water notice. But you know, we're just biding our time. We know it will happen, and it's more on this side of caution that we say to people, you may want to boil your water for this amount of time. Now, the caveat to that is that VDH also has this 2-hour notification window now. This was put into law last year. Everybody thinks it's because of Richmond, what happened, and it actually stems from before that, somewhere a little bit further west in Virginia. And basically, it's if you expect that there will be a significant potential for adverse effects to human health or a significant potential for widespread disruption of service, which means at least 500 connections, or if it's going to affect your hospital, long-term care, correctional facilities. You have to physically speak to someone at VDH within 2 hours. And what that means is you call and you leave a message, and they might call you back. But they have given us a whole list of numbers, and they say you just keep on calling. You just keep on calling. So thankfully, we have not had to experience that yet. And this does not include any planned outages. But if we have some sort of equipment malfunction where we go, oh my God, we're not going to be able to maintain pressure or whatnot, we call them. And then, of course, they are a really good resource for grants and loans. Unfortunately, we don't qualify for a lot of them because we don't have a community business operations plan. New waterworks are required to put these together. We've been around long enough that we haven't had to yet. So it's on the list to do so that if it makes us a little bit more attractive when grants or loans come out. And then HRSD, of course, is also under consent order and their localities by default. This is all about reducing our sanitary sewer overflows and sewer line inspection. So the fats, oils, and grease, our FOG program falls under this. This is a point of contention with my staff. I think the last time any inspections were done were 2022. There was not enough staff, and there's not good enough enforcement. So this will be another code that I will be looking at in the near future on how we can take care of this. So this is exactly what it sounds like. All of that stuff is going into our sewer system, and it's clogging up our pumps in our pump stations. It's not good. And then, of course, we have coordination meetings at least twice a year with HRSD where they tell us about their capital projects, we tell them about ours, and we look for ways to collaborate.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. I have at least one question, and I'll go back on a question. So if I operate a fast food restaurant and I fry foods, is it a condition of my business license that I'm going to have a fat removal process, or can I just discharge it any way I want?
No, you're supposed to have it, yes.
I understand you're supposed to.
As far as the business license piece, that I am not sure.
It's the health department.
The health department, yes.
The health department,
yes.
okay.
Because there are
Okay,
approved grease control devices. And so what our inspector would do is go to the establishment, make sure that it's there, that it's clean, that they're logging it. Yeah.
And just like some of the other questions you've had, we don't have enough people right now to do enforcement. So going out and doing this, when they've got to fix leaks, we got to fix the leaks. We can't go do the enforcement.
Mr. Wilmot.
Gloucester County has a provision or code section in your code that's a FOG ordinance, fats, oils, and grease. So it's county regulated, but if memory serves correctly, it's the health department pursuant to our $450,000 a year contract that is supposed to enforce it. The degree to which they do, I do not know.
I know on new restaurant constructions, they are very on it. I don't know about existing restaurants.
Well, and it's not just restaurants. It's food service establishments. So we're talking schools, churches, and that gets hotels, right?
Nursing homes, hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman. Is ODW looking for lead?
I'm sorry?
Is the Office of Drinking Water measuring lead?
So yes, we actually have to do lead and copper sampling. This one gets a little more complicated. So based on the year that homes were built, we have a sample of addresses. And our operators right now have to go out and say, here's your 2-liter containers, 2 1-liter containers. This is how you have to collect your sample. So now we're relying on the homeowner to do this, to do it properly, and then to actually follow through. So thankfully, we have been okay because there are different parameters on what levels there are. And if you exceed a particular level, then you have to do more of them. What we are going to be seeing coming down the pike as part of that lead service line inventory also is they may switch to 5 liters. So instead, if Dr. Leming, we come to your house, we used to hand you 2 1-liter bottles. Now we're going to hand you 5. And we need you to collect the first liter, go ahead and do your next 3, and then we want the 5th liter. And we need all of those for testing. And they need to be labeled properly. And this is what our operators are doing. It's pretty intensive. But thankfully, we have been okay. Okay, so financials, the really good stuff. And then I'm almost done. So FY26 revenue, you see the budgeted, projected, and whether or not we're over or short. Just slightly short in operating revenue. Nothing significant that has really caused that. I think it's just normal. I'm not seeing anything abnormal from any month to month. Application and development fees. You can see that we have collected almost $800,000, over $800,000 more than we budgeted for this fiscal year. And some of that is because right before we increased the fee, we had some developers that were finishing out smaller subdivisions. They came and they prepaid. The fire department did that. And then we have just seen some other business, Sheets, O'Reilly's, those sorts of things. So that is very good. Those have asterisks next to them because the FY26 budget was adopted, balanced, using those 2 revenue streams, and they should not have been. Those should have been in excess. But I tell you that as sort of a precursor. And then loan proceeds, use of development fund. The development fund has reduced to $76,000 because that will just cover the engineering costs for Forest Hill that we have already started doing. The rest of that will not be used because that will now go into debt funding. So our expenses, we have a little bit of savings in personnel, which was to be expected. Our operating budget is over budget by $700,000, which this really shouldn't be a surprise at this point, just from the information that I've been sharing. The first half of the fiscal year, we had, I think, 5 major line breaks that required contractors. 2 of them were on holidays. They're all on weekends. So the cost really hurt. However, staff have done a really good job since then of pretty much asking me if they can spend any money for every nut and bolt. So you can see our total operating expenses are short by $481,000. I don't want to say this is worst case because we always know something bad will happen, but I do feel that this is conservative. We only have a month and a half left in the fiscal year, and there are definitely some areas that may go lower. So how we balance it. So operating revenue minus expenses is a shortfall of $739,000. Now, the reason that is higher, again, is because The budget was balanced when it was adopted using those application and development fees. I have taken that out of this equation. But in order to balance the budget, what I am suggesting is the remaining $192,000 that's in unassigned fund balance, and using $547,000 of the already collected application fees to balance the budget, should this be our final expenditures. So this will show you what our fund balance would look like in this scenario. So unassigned fund balance at the beginning of the fiscal year was $657, and we budgeted to use $465 of that, which left us with $192. We would add $577 of the application fees, but then we're going to need to use $739,000, leaving us with a projected fund balance of $29,000. Development fund, on the other hand, we projected to use $560,000, but adding that remaining $484,000 that we're not spending, plus the development fees that we have received so far this year, that fund balance will be sitting at about $2.2 million. I will say that the application fees are already slightly higher since I have put this presentation together. Not by a whole lot, but we've collected a couple of more. This is my last slide. No, you're right. I have another one that says questions. So just looking ahead, the FY27 budget does include new staffing, the 2 new operators. It also includes a 2-person crew for valves and hydrants. This is a sorely neglected portion of our distribution system. And with that, of course, comes all of the operating costs with it. Those have been built into the budget. And then also as part of the FY27 budget, included the appropriations from the FY26 CIP carryover. Our new debt financing is $8.5 million. This encompasses 11 projects, 2 at the water treatment plant, 2 for sewer, and 7 for line improvements. And this, of course, includes Forest Hill and Phase 1 of Main Street. So our debt financing timeline, I did have a call with Davenport last week, and they are suggesting that they can just get some informal bank requests. If you all would like an actual formal bank RFP from them, they are certainly happy to do it. I just need to give them some direction. The VRA application is due August 7th. This is a non-binding application. This is what we did last year. VRA is actually who we ended up going with. The terms were better. So Davenport is available for both your August and your September meeting. So what I would like to do is come to you at the August 4th meeting, I believe, request a public hearing for the September 1st meeting to actually do the borrowing for these projects. The bonds, the sale of the bonds would occur in the middle of October, and then we would close in mid-November. And part of this would include a reimbursement resolution so that if we spent any money ahead of time, we could use those funds for it. My last slide. I forgot to bring my water up.
We'll go get it.
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. I think I'm almost done.
Are there any questions left of Ms. Legg before we run out of water? Do you want us to give you the head nod on August 4th?
Yes, and also would you like them to do the formal bank RFPs?
I don't think the bank's going to beat VRA.
I don't think so either.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know. You know, we had a very successful process with the fire department, and I thought that was sort of a model. You know, they weren't binding, but we asked for bank proposals, and then we did something else. That's just me.
The difference between the bank and the VRA is that a lot of times with our projects, we're going for 25 years, and the banks didn't go past 20. And so even if their interest rate was slightly lower, it wasn't anything that we were going to be able to afford. He can still get the informal ones because he has some some banks that he works with.
So do y'all want informal and VRA? Let's do the informal and the VRA, please. And please have those for us for August 4th, and then we can do the rest.
Yep.
Okay? Any other questions? We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
That sounds great.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We're on our agenda item number 9C, appointment of representative to the Chesapeake Bay Region Cigarette Tax Board, Mr. George Baines, interim county administrator.
Yes, sir, thank you. At one of our previous meetings, we decided to join the cigarette tax board. And tonight, if you would, we'd like to have a representative, and it can be a board member or a staff appointee. They have electronic meetings held quarterly on the first Thursday of March, June, September, and December.
Not be your planning commission person. Right.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, then make it him do it.
Or it doesn't necessarily have to be. So, I mean, to me, we can. Does the board have to make this appointment, Mr. Baines, or is this a county administrator appointment, or do we know?
I think the board has to appoint it.
So, do we want to make this our county administrator, which would be Mr. Baines at the moment, and it would fall to the next one, or do we want to make it a deputy county administrator, which would then be Ms. Biggers? That's my recommendation, would be to have Ms. Biggers sit on that for us.
Okay.
Second. So, okay. I guess I'll do all in favor. Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we don't have to have an alternate unless they want one.
The representative board or staff appointee. It didn't say that, but I think somewhere.
It's or, yeah. If it becomes too much for Ms. Biggers to attend, then we will appoint an alternate as well.
All right. Yeah.
Sorry, so next up is the discussion of topics for our June 16th town hall. When we did our agenda or our meeting schedule, we had put in a couple of town hall meetings. The next one that's coming up, the first one's always for the budget. The next one that's coming up, I was hoping to be able to do some comp plan discussions, but we're not that far along. So we need to come up with some topics, and if we don't come up with them tonight, that's okay. But I'd like to get them probably by the end of next week at the latest. If there's anything that's pressing that you all would like to discuss, we can do that. It may behoove us to do some more utility discussion with what we just witnessed. So that might be a good idea for that, because while Ms. Legg is graciously accepted to give us the updates here, we don't have a work session in June or July, so it might be one of the topics that we'd want to do is some utilities discussion. But if there's anything else, please let me know, or Ms. Cronin know, by the end of next week, so we can get that squared away. Does that work for you? Okay.
And to let you know, the stream was back on live at 7 p.m. They had to do some work over at T.C. Walker,
Okay.
but the schools called somebody in to fix that for us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next, we have discussion of research on Virginia local government forensic audit procurements, and I can't thank Ms. Joyce enough for sitting through this meeting to be here to help me answer some questions regarding this. I've had several board members ask about forensic audit. So logically, I asked our procurement officer if there were any open contracts, because sometimes they are easier and slightly more affordable. There are no open contracts for that, but she did find some information from other localities. I had Ms. Cronin include that in here this evening. So I guess what we need to decide on is how we want to proceed. Do we want an audit on the county side? Do we want an audit on the county and the school side? Do we want to go back 1 year? We want to go back 3 years? How deep and how wide do we want to cast this net? And is this a net that we're willing to cast? Because this way we can have Ms. Joyce do some more research, potentially put together an RFP for us if we go that route. But for tonight, I think our discussion needs to be based on what are we wanting to look at as far as doing a forensic audit.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bonniville.
I think we've heard some interesting remarks tonight in regards to some of the funds that do date back 5 years. I would be a proponent of that. And I would actually agree. I've received several emails over this exact topic that it's time and that we should make this happen. So that's where I stand with it. That's how I feel about it. 5 years, I mean, do both, but I do think we need to see what the price is going to look like as well. So.
Ms. Hanson.
You happen to mention the school component. We can include that in our.
Well, they technically are part of our budget. So you have the ability in the paperwork, I think, and Ms. Joyce will come up and clarify something if I misspeak, but I believe there were a couple of instances where some localities had went in, put an RFP out, and like, whoa, that's a big number. So then they went in and they said, well, we want to look at this particular portion of the budget, whether it's a particular department or whatever. And we have the full ability to look at whatever we want to look at as long as we have the ability to write a check to pay for it. So it's a matter of what you all want to see and if you want to see it.
It's my understanding the schools can conduct their own forensics audit on their own comings and goings. So do you think that that's something that we even should consider to overstep our bounds in that?
We're paying
realm?
for it.
I understand.
Regardless
Right.
of wherever, whether they do it, we do. That's the thing that, for me, if we're going to do this, what are we going to look at and how far do you want to look? Dr. Orth.
Well, it sounds like in order to satisfy the concerns of citizens who have been asking that we do, the entire county budget, all departments, and go back in terms of a number of years, because I think the question was the ARPA funds. Now, having been a part of the board that were debating the use of ARPA funds, those were specific to certain, groups. That could be easily followed, but then you'd have to follow the paperwork of what was actually purchased for those funds. But I would think that, we may want to go back to the beginning of the ARPA funds, whenever that was, but also include all the departments within the county, just because you don't want to single out any one individual group. It might be good, again, to satisfy the concerns of the citizens that all departments get looked at carefully.
Yep. So, Mr. Hutson? No, I was going to ask a question, but, so then the question would be, we're going to look at the budget in its entirety, which would then include the schools because they are part of our budget. And if you want to go back to ARPA, that's at minimum 5 years. So, go ahead.
Well, yeah, because ARPA funds were, there was a bunch of other stuff, but yeah, those were very specific. But do we want to do the entire county back 5 years? Because that would be really significant. And we could focus maybe on ARPA funds in the county, maybe 3 years, if we want to, rather than go all the way, because every year is going to be significant.
Yeah, but I think if they're going to have to open the books, they're going to have to go all the way back, no matter what. Correct?
There is potential, because I think there is some funds that were allocated, unallocated, reallocated all those years ago that could have some ramifications. So from what I'm hearing, and if I'm wrong, someone please correct me, it's looking like, and maybe the best solution tonight would be to have Ms. Joyce look at a 5-year look back at our budget to include, and I know we're saying ARPA, but there was other federal dollars that flowed, CARES Act, and I believe there was one other funding mechanism that was between us and the schools from the federal government at that point in time as well. So I think it would behoove us to ask Ms. Joyce to look and see what we can find on that, and then she can provide us information later as to an RFP and what kind of dollars we're looking at.
And again, not being familiar with the actual guts of a forensic audit, it might be good. We heard some things tonight from some of the citizens, but it might be really good for those like myself who are not completely familiar with the forensic audit, what the steps an audit takes from, the assignment of a budget to a department and how those funds are expended by individuals or whatever, for whatever. So, I mean, that's what I understand is part of the forensic audit, is that while we allocate funds for a department, the idea would be then to follow those funds to make sure they were funded specifically for those items relevant to that department.
I think we need to do it. I just hate that we're even talking about it tonight, the first meeting after Ms. Calloway has left the county. I think it just cast a shadow on her. But I think if we look at it, I think we need to look at the Board of Supervisors, all department heads, admin, the constitutional officers, look at their P cards, look at their reimbursements, and make sure it follows policies and procedures. Start, because that's where you're going to see the bulk of it, and then go out further, reaching out further to the different areas with the different money that we got from CARES, ARPA, and the other things. And I think we need, once Ms. Joyce gives us an idea on a dollar figure, we can either expand or close the net on where we want to search. But I think at a minimum, we need to look at personal expenses by department heads.
And because we are looking at a search for a new county administrator, it might be really good to have that information that things are good or whatever before the person steps in. So a clear slate for the new person coming in would be very helpful.
And that's the point I wanted to bring up. I think you've got half a new board, new county administrator coming on, potentially new CFO at some point coming on. What better time than the present to start it up? This is nothing in regards to Ms. Calloway. I highly respect her. But with the restart, we should have a refresh. And I think it's an opportune time.
And again, I think for the citizens that are bringing this issue up, let's resolve the issue so that the citizens feel that their well-earned tax money is being used appropriately.
Agreed.
As some have said too, here we've raised the taxes. And, we do county assessments every 3 years. We don't check our own books. And that isn't transparency. And transparency is what they're asking for in a way that is meaningful and that they can understand it. And so that, we can quell the questions that, no, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. And that's good for our new administrators and our new employees that are coming through. I think it's something we should probably consider making it a part of our process ever so often. So it doesn't have the look of, oh, there's has left or, may have been let go. But on a regular basis of saying, hey, we just want to take a look at our books and make sure that we're still going in the direction that we need to go into so it doesn't have the appearance of a witch hunt, if you will.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
Perhaps you could have, if you were to go out in an RFP, you could have alternates. And perhaps the alternate hierarchy could be starting with how much would it cost and what would be involved for a forensic audit of the Board of Supervisors and the department heads. And the CARES Act, ARPA funds, and all other federal funding streams. So that would be number one.
Federal pandemic funding stream.
Pandemic. So that would be tier number one, thinking it would be the cheapest and the most restricted in scope. And 2 would be countywide, and 3 would be countywide and schools. So that's perhaps 3 alternates, thinking they're graduated in expensive and then outrageously expensive.
So my salary versus yours.
Something like that.
Okay.
I think that's a fine idea, Esquire.
The other, I don't want to.
Well, and I think that with what Mr. Wilmot has said and what this board has relayed, Ms. Joyce, can you come up here for 1 second so I can ask you a question? I know she is. That's why I'm asking her to come up here. Do you have enough information that you can
I
provide?
think so to get started.
Okay.
And then I'll run it by George, Regine, and Ted, get their opinions too.
Okay.
I think a tiered approach sounds like it's good because then you can kind of like an a la carte kind of phase it out.
Okay.
Again, I can't project the
No,
cost
I
of
know.
this project, but
No, absolutely not. I'm not asking you to do that. Just making sure you've gotten enough
I
information.
plan on calling Culpeper because that was the one that most recently got proposals back in, I think, in April. So maybe that would be a good way if I can share some information from their procurement team to see what it cost them, because theirs was pretty broad too. I think theirs was the last 5 years.
Okay. So yeah, let's start there.
Okay.
And then get back with us as soon as you can.
Okay, absolutely.
And there's a consensus to do this. Mr. Hutson?
And also an estimated evaluation period, how long it would take them to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
if they could come up
Yeah.
with that also.
Because they do interviews, I think I was reading about some of them, and then the ultimate, if there's litigation that comes out of it. So it's a whole project. It could span years.
Correct.
So.
Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Leming?
I'm probably in favor of the concept. I mean, I think there are two sort of competing issues here. One is doing a forensic audit is pandering to the conspiracy theories that circulate through the world. That's certainly one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that, and I thought the previous supervisor tonight had an interesting conversation. He was essentially talking about a compliance audit, by the way, where instead of coding one way, I should have coded it a different way. I'm just not complying with, just hang on. That's a compliance audit. And then there's a nefarious audit, which looks for people who are stealing money. And that's a very granular creature. And that kind of thing takes potentially years, and it's an enormous amount of staff time in a nefarious forensic audit. I mean, they're going to track everybody down, sit down with the receipts that have gone posted against an account and say, explain this. And so there's not just the cost to the auditor, but there's a staff cost involved in facilitating that audit. And I'm just concerned about what those costs look like. And then I want to know where the money's coming from.
Correct.
I mean,
well, and that's
this could. I'm not trying to throw water on the idea. I actually like the idea of accountability and transparency, but if it's $1 million, I probably don't like it very much.
No, you like it a whole lot less.
Yeah, that's
So,
all right. I'm in favor of a tiered approach for
right,
the
and that's-
RFP.
I
I
think that's-
like that idea. We get more information. I personally like the idea that we're having a conversation about it tonight. Sometimes that drives people to show up at future meetings to have public comment for or against, and I think it's a good thing to do.
No, and I agree, but, that's why I think we've given Ms. Joyce what she needs to hopefully provide us the information to make a better decision and on the amount that we're going to spend, and that'll be up to Mr. Baines and Finance to find out where we have the money, if we have the money. The other thing is what'd you call the first audit? Not nefarious, but the compliance. I believe there's an offer out from Berkeley to do just that for us already if we wanted to do that.
That's a different
Correct.
feature.
But at this point in time, I've spoken with Mr. Baines several times, and I don't think we want to do that as of yet. But if this comes back to be $5 million, we're going to have to do something. So that would be a fallback. But we have opportunities and options, and I think going down this path will give us insight as to what we're looking at and the affordability.
I did not include the constitutionals in option one, except for pandemic relief stuff, if that's okay with you. I think that's potentially just.
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
But number two, they would be countywide. They
Correct.
would be.
Okay. So you have enough?
Yeah, I believe I have enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, Mr. Nicosia.
if I may. I think everybody has made great points, but I'd like to throw two things out there. First of all, I like the direction we're going with the tiered approach, and I think that there is some, I'm trying to choose the right word here. I think that somebody made a good comment about words being said, things being written. That happens to every one of us sitting here. And I think this right here shows that we're listening, and we're going to take a look at the tiered approach, and we're going to see what it costs, and we're going to push forward. Because if the constituents want the information and the county can afford to give it to them, let them look at it.
Correct. Any other comments before we move to supervisor discussions? Anybody have any items for supervisor discussion? Dr. Orth, I should know.
Well, this had to do with food trucks. Sorry. Well, it comes, no. I understand, like last year, we had a food truck bonanza at Page Middle School, right? And we had a carnival. But I had a person come up to me and say, on Saturday, there are lots of people going up and down 17 to the beach that might be taking 17 rather than 64. Maybe having food trucks every Saturday for a certain number of hours, could bring some income to the county. So I just want to throw that out. I don't know whether that's possible or not. But I know this gets in line with, the use of Page site, maybe just for Saturday from hours like 11 to 7, where, people know there are food trucks. They may not want to stop quickly, or at a sit-down restaurant, but get something quick. I'm just throwing that out. It might.
I know they have another food truck.
Right.
Item or.
But just like for
planned.
Just for a Saturday from a certain number of hours.
I do know that there are several that are located throughout the county
Right.
on the weekends.
But if they were located right there on Page property, and people knew there were food trucks.
Well, I think that's coming.
Yeah.
At a future meeting.
Well, I think you're talking about as a food truck court approval on Page.
Yeah.
We were talking about that as a part of the community center, having a partner.
Well, right. But I mean, with the traffic coming on Saturday, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be like every single day. It would just be like Saturdays from a certain number of hours, because that's when most of the traffic, people going to the beach or coming back from the beach and not wanting to get on 64. If they knew there were food trucks there, they'd get a bunch of different things. It
So
might be
there's one flaw in that.
Okay.
I would say the vast majority of travelers are using Google Maps, Waze, Apple Maps. A food truck that's there only on a Saturday isn't going to have a notification on their tab if they're looking for somewhere to eat, unless it's a registered food court park or something. That's my concern, and it's not a bad idea. Don't get me wrong; it's not a bad idea. But I think there's plenty of options for people traversing
I just
the
want to
county.
throw that idea out because of the amount of traffic and people, and then people not wanting to take 64 with all the traffic, using 17 as the median to go to the beach, to 95. It's just a thought.
We'll certainly make sure we let the people in Parks and Rec know that y'all loved the food truck bonanza last year, and I do know that the carnival is coming. He got the contract on it, but I don't know the dates. I forgot to write them down, and I apologize. The other thing I had was, is it the LWC regime? Do you remember which the grant? I signed the grant for the master plan for the beach. That was it was our grant. We didn't have to pay anything for that one, right? It's not a matching, but it was like $253 for the master plan for the whole point area. I signed for that one yesterday, so that's coming.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Baines, you might want to get Ms. Ducey Ortiz in, because when we talked last week or last meeting, or maybe it was planning, I don't know when it was, we had the issue about it couldn't be on vacant property. We'd need restrooms. We'd need other things. If we were going to do this on Saturdays, we don't want to break our own ordinances that we just passed or are getting ready to pass.
Yes,
so there's
sir.
a lot
We
of
would-
stipulations that we had for them that we would have to get covered.
This is under the old one because they're only going to be there for a day or two. I'm not going to have them stay there permanently.
But you still have to have the restroom.
Ms. Hanson?
Yeah, I mean, the things you could be.
Ms. Hanson?
I mean, I'm just trying to think how we.
Dr. Orth? Ms. Hanson?
Oh.
It's okay. We're having a discussion. I know you gentlemen know I'm on the Historic Committee, working really close with Robert on the 250 and some other items for some of our celebrations around the county. And one of the particular items I'm very excited about is that on the 28th of May, they're going to be doing a reading of the Declaration of Independence from the courthouse doors and setting that up so the citizens can come and any of us can come and choose a sentence, choose a paragraph, and read the Declaration of Independence. The significance of this, when John Page supposedly delivered the information or delivered the announcement of the Declaration of Independence to Gloucester County. So that's how we're pulling into the 250. And Robert also, I asked to have a tour of I let him pick them, of the historic sites in Gloucester County that I had never been to. Born and raised here, I'm ashamed to say I've never been to Rosewell. That was quite a very honored experience to have a private tour and history of that building. And I went to the St. James on the Glebe, which I didn't even know was back there. Beautiful, beautiful people that are running that. Some wonderful ideas that they're having for that property and to building a school. Just really great stewardship of those that I don't know how you could say pastor, priest, and his wife. They got a farm back there. It's absolutely adorable. But there's really, we kind of lag behind on the 250 with some of the things and ideas. Robert's worked very hard with his staff and the tourism committee as well. I've been to those meetings, creating pamphlets and coloring books for the 250 for the children. We're also doing a kind of a Gloucester passport like we were doing for the state of Virginia for the 250. And there's a lot of things that are coming down the pike. So, make sure we pay attention. I intend to be as much as I can be, being on the historical committee, but I've also told Robert that, I wanted to be as a board member a part of these celebrations to show our commitment to these celebrations and to our community. So absolutely, let's all come up and read the Declaration of Independence together on 28th. It's at 1 o'clock. May 28th, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Orth. You're good. Okay. Anything else for supervisor discussion?
Yeah, I got one.
Yep.
I'm going to voice a little frustration because I think that the government ought to work for the people, and sometimes I'm of the opinion that the government works against the people. So let me give you a little scenario that some years ago, and I don't know when, but in the 90s, I believe, a gentleman bought 13 acres in the Petsworth district off of Route 198 near what you all would know as KOA. No, it's not called KOA anymore. It's called Thousand Trails. Thank you. I'm sorry. And he put a lumber mill over there called Gloucester Wood Products. And they milled lumber and they treated lumber and they had large, heavy trucks going off 198 back in there, 40-foot tractor trailers. And he built a number of sheds because when you have a lumber mill, you don't want the wood getting wet. At some point, and I think it might have been around 2020, I'm not quite certain, this board approved use of part of that site for commercial purpose for the construction and erection of a cell tower. And that cell tower is in continuous commercial use today. The cell people pay the owner of Gloucester Wood Products an amount of money each month as rent. So the property was vacant for a number of years. The gentleman retired. He didn't have a buyer. And a young kid who graduated high school in, Gloucester, Virginia, Dukes in 2009, named Will Sterling, had been running a mobile marine business for some years, had a Gloucester business license, I'm told. He would come to your house and fix your boat, and he didn't have any place as a shop. And somehow Will struck a deal with the gentleman of Gloucester Wood Products that he could come operate his business out of there. There's a 6,000 square foot warehouse there. There are these numerous sheds where you can put boats under the sheds and keep them out of the weather. To get back in there, you kind of have to drive past the cell tower, and so it's all kind of down a little short road. You really can't see it well from the highway. And I learned this week that that Will's use is a non-conforming use. That Gloucester Wood Products was allowed to go back in there and put a lumber mill in because a lumber mill is an agricultural product. And the use of a lumber mill conforms with an RC1 zoning. So although Will is using a use substantially less intense than a lumber mill because it's called, probably consistent with a marine repair business, it's a non-conforming use. Now, Will has told me that he's gotten bank approval to take his business to Matthews, where he can buy the Helbig property, which is at the corner of 198 and Twiggs Ferry Road. The Helbig property has a 5-bay auto body shop, and it's located in Matthews, Virginia. And I'm just frustrated because I can't seem to find a way to keep a Gloucester business in Gloucester over a zoning issue for a use less intense than it was previously used. And I'm sharing frustration, asking for suggestions, whether that's a variance, that probably didn't fly, whether it's a CUP. I don't, and I understand nobody wants to do, quote, spot zoning, close quote, but to me, somehow, sometimes the government ought to work for the people. That's just where I am. Mind you, he's been there for, I don't know, a year, maybe more, so his shops are all set up. I think somebody, what I heard, I'm not sure who told me this, was that somebody called zoning and said he was storing boats back there. Well, you know, people do want their boats under a roof in the wintertime sometimes, and he probably did have a bunch of boats back there under the sheds. I'm not surprised at that. But I just think it's a shame to lose a business out of our area when he's trying to do right. And by the way, Will would probably be embarrassed that I brought this up. I mean, his comment to me was, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. You just tell me what I want to do. I mean, so he'd like to keep his business here if we can find a way, but we may not be able to find a way. I tried to think of that, you know.
We'd probably have, the probably easiest solution would be changing allowable uses, and I believe he was zoned, or that property is zoned RC1.
It is RC1
so
today.
We would have to do something to change the allowable uses in that zoning district. Would probably be the shortest distance to yes. Well, it's a process.
I think Mr. Sterling has been to zoning at least 10 times, is what I was told.
But what I'm saying is the government can work for him, so we can direct staff to.
That's why I'm having the conversation.
But we can direct.
By the way, Ms. Ortez knows this. Yep. Have I represented this fairly? No, I don't want to misrepresent it.
Yes, and I responded.
I know.
It would have to be a code amendment or a rezoning. Again, you don't want a zoning administrator making decisions.
Right, but I didn't want to say anything disparaging about your staff. I wasn't trying to do that.
Right, and we have worked with them. We gave them an option. One of the things we do allow home occupations, and the board has relaxed that. So that was really the only other option. But it would involve a code amendment. I sent you the code and what it would be considered under our code. So a lumber yard still is permitted. Sawmill is a permitted use in RC1. We don't have any, but it is.
So can we just say he's fixing all the boats with wood?
Well, first of all, I mean,
it's just a joke. I'm not being serious.
He wasn't being serious.
No.
We did look through the code. Actually, Laura was hoping, she actually thought about a marina, but our definition of marina actually says on a navigable waterway. So we did look through the whole ordinance to see if there's a use. We do try to do that, if we can pass the red face test. But it would involve or because even if you rezoned it, it would have to be B1, which is really would be the wrong zoning district for that area.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that.
Yeah.
Does he have a business license?
Yes, he does for a mobile.
But you can't get a business license until you go through zoning.
His business license is for a mobile marine so going mobily, and so it's out of his house.
Which, by the way, he still does. Yeah. He just also has a bricks.
It's the also. Okay.
Yeah. That property currently doesn't have a business license associated with it. And so we've been working with Mr. Sterling for quite a while to try to get compliance.
Oh, I think they're stuck.
Well, unless we.
I mean, that's my understanding.
Unless we.
It's a non-conforming use.
But
well,
we can ask them to change the definition, and it would be a code amendment, change the definition of what is allowed in RC1. We could make this use allowable in RC1, and then the whole thing goes away.
It still need a permit. But it's not a non-conforming use is it's a use that's not allowed in that zoning district. A non-conforming use is a use that was allowed at one point, and then.
So it's just.
Yeah, it's just not a permitted use in that district.
It's not a permitted use?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I don't know if I have the support of the board to ask them to do that or not, but that's what I would like to do on behalf of my constituent. Let me ask this. Is there such a, would there be such a thing as a sunset provision, you know, like, you allow the use?
It's 2 years, I think, currently. Once it ceases, then it loses its.
That's what I'm asking.
So again,
You know what I was
a
asking.
lumberyard is
Permitted.
permitted, so that's not a non-conforming use. So that would be a permitted use, and somebody can come in and do that. What he wants to do in our ordinance is considered sales, I think it's vehicle sales and repair, and that is not listed as a permitted use in RC1. It is permitted in B1.
But
And
what he's asking about is more like Stevenson's Child Care Center down there that was a child care center and has ceased to be a child care center for
more than 2 years.
6 or 7 years now.
Totally.
But that's what he was asking about is.
I thought what he was asking was if this guy goes in, could we put a sunset on the guy who's coming in so that if he stops using it goes back to the old
That's
zoning?
exactly what I was asking, George. Thank you.
Well, it would all depend on how much you want to help your constituents. So if you made it a conditional use permit, you could probably make that as a condition. If you made it a by right, that would just be by right for anyone. But then when you think about it, you do a code amendment, which will take some time, plus we have a lot of other things we want to add in our code amendment because the General Assembly has passed all these new laws that go into effect on July 1st. But then you'd have to go through the code amendment and then through the CUP, kind of what we did with Small Town Burger. They requested a code amendment, we researched it, wrote a code amendment, now they have to come back and do a CUP. So it would not be a quick fix.
Well, I understand that, but in my little brain, that's as close as creating a CUP opportunity would be the closest thing to not creating that use in all of RC1,
Correct.
which I don't think anybody wants to do. I'm just trying to solve this problem without contaminating all of the zoning. And to me, that sounds like a way to do it. Now the only question would be, if it's going to be, I don't know, whatever time it takes to do that, Ms. Ann, is he going to come under an enforcement decision before that?
Our goal is to work with people to get compliance,
Right,
so if we were moving forward, if the board directed us to do that, and we know that that was the solution for it, that's what we work towards, so.
Mr. Chairman, that's what that's sort of, and I think Will be glad to do whatever he needs to do in the CUP, for example. I asked if somebody wanted to have Leland cypress planted out front so nobody could see in the wintertime. He's like, sure, I'll do that. So if the board would support that, I would be eternally grateful. If it doesn't think it's ready for that, I understand. But I think zoning has really done a great job. Nothing in my conversation was meant to be derogatory to zoning at all, but I'm just trying to solve a problem.
So,
Right.
So if that's, I believe our ordinance says a motion by the board or commission, so we need a motion.
So is that a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? So we have a motion and a second to start the process
To allow a CUP.
To allow a CUP for this business and
Marine
for this
repair
type of
and
business.
sales.
Type of business.
Okay, in the RC1. And that would control it.
Correct. So
It is RC1.
do you have any comments, Mr. Wa-
Yeah, so did you get enough information to help us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Once that motion is passed, then the planning commission has 100 days or something within which, right, to get back. See, the planning commission is going to have a public hearing on it. on whether to amend your zoning ordinance to allow CUPs, and then they will refer their recommendation with that ordinance amendment to the Board of Supervisors, which will then have a public hearing on that ordinance. And then if you both pass the ordinance, you pass the ordinance on your reading of it after your public hearing, then you'll have an opportunity for this individual and similarly situated individuals in the RC1 district to apply for that kind of use pursuant to conditional use permit on a case-by-case basis.
And I guess I have one request, that if we can get more than 100 days. I literally have 4 applications right now, several solar projects, Fox Mill. I don't have enough staff to get this done in that time.
No, and we're not asking you to get this
It's
done
required by
that
code.
quickly,
But
no.
the code requires.
Right, but
She'd like 120.
Because really, we're inundated right now, and I, to be honest, I really would like to. I could do that simple code amendment, which there's really nothing as a simple code amendment, but it would be great if we could do all the other required code amendments, like the manufactured housing one, but we might just do this simply, maybe, because we have a lot of things that have to be done because of the General Assembly.
Maybe we could do this in 100 days because it's the simple early one.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
We'll try.
okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Baines, would you poll the board?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonniville?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming?
Yes. I'd like to thank Ms. Ducey-Ortez, the Planning Commission, Council Wilmot, and the board.
Yes, sir.
And of course, the administration.
So is that it for supervisor discussion? Do we need to make a motion to extend our meeting before we go into closed session, Mr. Hudson? I'm just joking. Did you see it? Did you see it? That's the most animated he's been in 15 years. So with that, Mr. Wilmot, would you read us into closed session?
Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors desires to discuss a particular subject in closed meeting during the course of its meeting of May 19, 2026, and whereas the nature of the subject is consultation with legal counsel and staff on pending litigation, Chilling on the River LLC Commercial Campground BZA appeal. Such discussion in closed meeting is expressly permitted pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does hereby convene in closed meeting for the purposes herein expressed pursuant to the legal authority herein recited.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Baines, would you poll the board?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonneville?
Yes.
Dr. Orth?
Yes.
Dr. Leming?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Thank you. We're in closed session. into open session.
Whereas the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors has completed its discussion in closed meeting and now desires to continue its open meeting, and whereas only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and the only subjects heard, discussed, or considered in said closed meeting were the matters identified in the resolution by which it was convened. Now therefore be it resolved that the Gloucester County Board of Supervisors does now hereby reconvene an open meeting in its meeting of May 19, 2026, and certifies the matters set forth in Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712D.
We have a motion, we have a second. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Baines, would you poll the board?
Yes, sir. Mr. Nicosia?
Yes.
Ms. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Bonniville?
Yes.
Dr. Orth? Dr. Leming?
Yes.
Mr. Hutson?
Yes.
Mr. Chriscoe?
Yes. Mr. Hutson, there's one more item. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.